Hey, Brooke here. You meet someone, there's interest, curiosity, excitement. The conversation flows, the connection builds, and it feels like this could actually turn into something. And then, a few months later, it shifts. Not dramatically, and not for any particular reason, really. Just slowly and quietly, the feeling starts to fade. The excitement isn't as strong. The interest feels flatter, and you're left wondering, why do I lose feelings so easily? It can feel confusing, especially when nothing really went wrong. But psychologically, a few things can explain this. One of the biggest pieces of this actually starts much earlier, often in childhood. Attachment theory, originally developed by John Bowlby, suggests that the way we experience closeness as adults is shaped by how connection felt growing up. If emotional closeness was inconsistent, overwhelming, or not always safe, your brain may have learned to associate connection with discomfort rather than stability. So as a child, you adapt. You learn to rely on yourself, to regulate your own emotions, to not expect too much from others. And that adaptation works. It protects you, but it also becomes your baseline. Then later, in adult relationships, as the connection becomes more consistent, more real, and more emotionally present, your brain starts to register it as a loss of independence. So instead of feelings growing with closeness, they begin to fade. Not because the person isn't right, but because closeness itself feels unfamiliar or slightly threatening. But there's also something called novelty-based attraction. At the beginning of a connection, your brain is responding to uncertainty. It's new, and you don't fully know the person yet, and that creates excitement. That uncertainty produces emotional intensity, but over time, that uncertainty decreases. That person becomes more predictable, more familiar, and less exciting. This is where something called hedonic adaptation comes in, a concept studied by researchers like Philip Brickman. As your brain gets used to something, it stops reacting with the same intensity. So what once felt exciting will always go down to a baseline of feeling normal. So sometimes what feels like losing feelings is actually just your brain adapting to familiarity. There's also a cognitive layer, especially for people who are more self-aware and analytical. You're not just feeling the connection, you're evaluating it. Do I actually like them? The more you analyze, the harder it is for feelings to develop naturally, because instead of letting emotion unfold, you're constantly checking it. And that checking process can slowly disconnect and desensitize you from the feeling itself. Another factor is idealization. At the beginning, your brain fills in the gaps. You project traits, imagine compatibility, and create a version of the person that feels aligned with what you want. But as you get to know them, reality replaces projection. And while that's a normal part of connection, it can feel like a drop. Not because the person changed, but because your perception did. For some people, that shift feels like losing feelings, when it's actually just the transition from imagined connection to real connection. But here's what matters. Losing feelings quickly doesn't mean you're incapable of connection. It often just means that your brain's responding to closeness and familiarity in a way that prioritizes excitement, comfort, and control. And those responses can change, not by forcing feelings, but by understanding what's happening underneath them. Anyway, thanks for stopping by the Brooke of Knowledge. If you liked what your weird brain just learned, hit subscribe. If not, that's okay. I'm sure you're just wondering if you even liked me in the first place.